Welcome back to another episode of Life in the Stands podcast. We have Jake and Zach on the podcast today. We're really excited to talk about some NBA draft and NBA free agency stuff. We will get into some NFL topics a little later as well, and we'll bring Beans into the mix. But first, before we jump into those things, we want to thank everyone for watching and listening. Remind everyone to like and subscribe, whatever platform you're listening on, whether it be YouTube or Spotify or something else. Really appreciate all the support and the listening. And with that, we're going to first jump into the NBA draft. It just finished up yesterday. So we're each going to pick a winner of the NBA draft, just one team each of us, and we'll let Bender take the reins first.
Yeah, so I think my pick is kind of an interesting one. I have the Utah Jazz as the draft winner. They got Cody Williams in this draft as their number 10 pick, which I think is a sneaky pick. I think he's going to be like a Jaylen Brown, Paul George prototype. So I think that's going to be their star of the future. They also got Isaiah Collier from USC, point guard that they can look forward in the future. Um, they also have Filipowski from Duke, who I thought was going to be a first round pick. So that's kind of a sneaky pick. I thought they won after the first round. And then as soon as they got him, I was like, okay, that just solidifies my pick for sure on that one. I think he's going to be an impact player off the bench just because they have so many big guys in that rotation. And what that tells me when they drafted him, that tells me they're not going to hold on to one of Kessler, Collins, or Markkanen. I believe Markkanen's the name that's being kind of floated out there for contenders right now. But either way, they have something to look forward to. They do have a lot of young guys on that team. George is on that team as well. He had a good season last year. He's not talked about enough. He's a bucket getter. So you're adding a lot of young talent. I'm not saying it'll be an immediate impact, but I think they won the draft this year.
Yeah, I mean it's not a bad pick. I'm never going to disagree with the Jazz either. It's like I guess a second hometown team now, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, not going to disagree with the Jazz at all. I think you mentioned a couple picks there that slid quite a few picks down uh, down into the second round there. So I think it makes sense that they're doing that. Um, and it's a lot of young talent. It will be interesting to see what happens though with the three big guys because Markkanen I feel like is also pretty easily the best out of those three. And he's young still. He still kind of fits the Jazz's timeline. So to trade him away, I don't know if I'd do that still. Like, what are you going to get? It depends on what you get in return. So I guess that depends. But my pick is actually going to be the Los Angeles Lakers. So the Lakers, to me, won the draft for a couple of reasons. Kind of similar to the Jazz, they slid. They picked a guy that was sliding pretty far down the draft board in Dalton Connect, and I think he really fits what they need as well, just solid wing depth that can shoot the three around Anthony Davis and LeBron. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And it wasn't necessarily a guarantee that LeBron was coming back to the Lakers before the draft, but now obviously Bronny James is headed there. So LeBron is most definitely going to re-sign with the Lakers. So it kind of pick up another player almost guaranteed by making that pick. And we were talking about this a little bit before the podcast. Bronny James is going to be a smart NBA basketball player. Like he's grown up around the game. He's been around LeBron obviously his whole life. He's been around high level basketball. Yeah, he's going to be super heady. Yeah, like he's going to get it. So even if he's not super physically gifted, the comparison I made, and I'm not comparing him to Rondo, but that's kind of the role that I compared him to. He's going to be that backup point guard that comes in. He'll probably learn to help settle the game a little bit, control pace. He's going to be smart in that way. He's probably not going to turn the ball over a ton. He's going to be scrappy, play defense, play like TJ McConnell. So I think it's a good fit for a Lakers backup point guard too to take some of that pressure off. So I'm going to pick the Lakers in this draft for those couple of reasons.
A little bit of a side conversation, but I hope Rondo ends up being an assistant coach for that team as well, since I know he's been mentioned. I think that'd be a great mentor for a smaller guard like Bronny James. So I think that'd be kind of cool. Now, if anybody was keeping up with our Twitter, please drop us a follow. But I was raging on Twitter about Dalton Connect dropping in this draft. Um, and I guess Bob Myers or somebody reached out and was asking why he's dropping in the draft. And they said it's because he's not like 18, 19, 20 years old. He's not super young. He was a senior last year. He played 5 or 6 years in college, different schools, obviously, but he's already 23. And I'm like, why does that matter when he's shooting 40% and he's a top 10 talent? I had him going top eight. So I don't know why he slid so far just because of his age. I don't know why that makes a difference. People can play till they're 38 to 40 nowadays. So I don't know.
I wouldn't say people can play to 38 and 40 just because LeBron makes it looks easy, but I do agree. Like the whole age thing, I think it's a little overblown. Some guys you'll pick at 18, they're supposed to be developmental and they never learn to shoot. So Dalton Connect already being there, like it feels like more of a surefire prospect than a lot of guys that might have been picked before him. Maybe lower upside, lower ceiling potentially, but I think the floor is worth it when you know what you're getting. But with that, we're going to jump into some NBA rapid fire now, and this is going to be a little bit different. We're going to do rapid fire just with free agency. So I'm just going to list a free agent, and Bender's going to tell me where he'd like to see that free agent end up. We have a couple of names here. So we're going to start with Tobias Harris.
China. No, I'm just kidding. I think he'll end up on the Detroit Pistons. I think that's the best fit for them for the building team around him.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. He also played there before. Paul George.
I'd like to see him go back home to Indy. I know it's a possibility for the Sixers, but I think Indy is the best fit for him, and guys like Halliburton and Siakam can kind of take the pressure off.
Indy would be cool. That's one I haven't heard quite as much, so that's a cool pick. Isaiah Hartenstein.
Um, I would like to say the Thunder. I thought the Thunder was going to try and get Edie, but he got picked really quick in the draft. So Hartenstein would fit next to Chet pretty good.
All right. Klay Thompson.
I'm going to say the Warriors just because I want to see the Warriors keep Clay until the big three retires. But not only that, I want to see them trade for Kevin Durant and kind of take a shot in the dark.
The Warriors keeping Klay and trading back for Kevin Durant would be wild. And if
Hmm.
they won another chip again, that would be even crazier. I don't.
Yep.
That's wild. All right. Tyus Jones.
That's a sneaky one. I don't want to see him go there, but I think it'd be a good fit for them, maybe. Maybe the Pelicans if they can't trade for Garland.
Ooh, okay. I do like that. I do like the Pelicans. All right, last name I have here for you, and then we're going to bring our NFL analyst, Brian Aguilar, into the call. Beans. Last name here is Jonas Valanciunas.
This is a cool one as well. I'm gonna say the Lakers. They're looking at getting another big guy to pair with Anthony Davis, so Davis doesn't have to play the five spot as much. They can rotate in and out and have some kind of rotation as Christian Wood was either hurt or did not play last year. They let JaVale McGee kind of walk last year, so they didn't have that pairing with him. And he can also shoot the three, which will help out their spacing.
Yeah, I really like that. So that is NBA Rapid Fire, and with that, we'll bring Beans onto the podcast here.
Time to fire us up. We got a crazy start bench cut coming. So
Yeah, we're gonna have a good conversation here. Beans, can you hear us all right?
What up, boys?
What
yes,
up,
sir.
Beans? So we're gonna get into a fun NFL conversation here. We have a start bench cut conversation. So the three players that we're gonna talk about are TJ Watt.
You guys look like twins.
Thank you, Beans. TJ Watt, Nick Bosa, and Micah Parsons. So obviously you have a Steelers fan, you have a Cowboys fan, you have a Niners fan. We all have a horse in this race. So I feel like we should just let Beans take the first stab at this. Start bench cut, those three players.
So we all have a horse in this race. I think two of us have horses in this race. One of us has one of those miniature donkeys. Like one of them doesn't belong. Like one of them clearly is a cut below the other two.
Ooh.
Um, and I think that's the one down there in Dallas, Mr. Micah Parsons. I think he's weak.
That
So
kind of
yeah, he's
reminds
gonna
me
be
of
cut.
Kyle saying he doesn't like Justin Fields' face.
Really?
Yeah.
What's wrong with Justin
Just
Fields?
the way it came off, but continue, please. I'm enjoying this.
Um, yeah, I mean, I just think that from like a consistency standpoint, Michael Parsons just isn't there. Like TJ Watt is, like Nick Bosa has been at times, which kind of defeats the purpose of being consistent. But that's why he's my number two. He's my bench. I think as good as he is, especially with this last offseason with him having that contract extension and him sitting out, he had kind of like a slow start. So I can't, take his recent year and say like, look how good he did, you know what I mean? But with TJ Watt, I mean, he's just a monster. I mean, game in, game out, he's the epitome of, consistency. He plays as often as he can. I know he's had a couple crazy big injuries and stuff like that, but he's just, two-time defensive player of the year.
think one's
tied sack.
two-time
Not
sack,
one time.
multiple time sack leader. One time,
Somebody looked that up.
he's only won one, but Aaron Donald
News.
did come out and say that he should have like three.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Watt has two, but I might be wrong. But I think Watt's. I mean, he's top dog in here for sure.
Yeah, I
Miles
guess
Garrett
I'll
clears.
jump in here.
Yeah, go ahead, Bender.
I'm not going to be irrational. I think if we're going off of what we've seen even the last like 3 years, I think Beans is right. I'm going to take it in a different perspective and say what's going to happen this year. Um, I'm actually so I think if you don't start TJ Watt, you're crazy. Now all three of these guys are in a league of their own, and you could even throw Miles Garrett in there. We just didn't have room unless you wanted to cut another guy. But I
We're
think
killing
what
Mike Parsons.
makes I I think what makes a lot of these guys good, not just their talent, is also their surrounding team. And I think the Niners lost a lot of their big pieces up front to help out Bosa this upcoming year. Um, so I think that's kind of where I'm going with this. Is more like TJ Watt
Did
is
I just lose connection?
no, you're good. We hear you.
We
Some
got
no
frozen
love.
beans, but
Oh no. We can still hear you. We just can't see you. But TJ Watt has Highsmith and Hayward. Um, Micah has DeMarcus Lawrence, and basically anybody else you want to throw in our back end. Stephon Gilmore, Diggs is back, all those guys. So I think coverage sacks help, all that kind of good stuff. But I think Bosa losing that front line um, is kind of allow teams to focus in more on him, and that'll be why I cut him this year. I'm going to bench Micah and start TJ.
cool. Yeah, I mean, as the Steelers fan, I came into this conversation. I was like, man, I hope all of us don't pick our guy to be the starter because I'm definitely going to pick TJ Watt. I have the bias towards
Yep.
that, obviously. But then, yeah, I mean, if you look at the stats over the last couple of years, it's hard to argue that he's been the most dominant defensive presence in the league. You know, like sack leader multiple times. You know, he had the injury, I think, in 2023 or 2022, but you know, he tied the all-time sack record for a season. There's always interceptions. There's always forced fumbles. There's always lots of tackles for loss. Like, yeah, I always remember the play that he made against the Rams on Matt Stafford, where he dropped out into a flat zone and then within like a three-step drop, played an out route to like either Puka or Cooper Kupp and ended up picking it off. And it's like you don't see any of those other guys making that play.
No,
And that comes from a veteran presence too. So TJ Watt is a little bit older than all these guys as well. So could also be a thing where they haven't reached their peak. But overall, yeah, I mean, I think I'd do the same. I think I would start TJ Watt. The conversation between Nick Bosa and Micah is difficult because Micah is more hybrid and I would say more dynamic. And Nick Bosa, in some ways, is like kind of set at his position. But in some ways, I think that frustrates Micah and maybe makes him less productive. And because Nick Bosa is where he is, you know what to expect. So I think there's a double-edged sword for each of those. But I probably would bench Micah actually, and I would cut Nick Bosa, just because I think because of the positional flexibility, if you're looking forward, Micah
for sure.
has some more upside there. But with
And if
that,
that's what
oh, go ahead.
I would say, and if that's what you're looking for, then yeah, I think the more versatile you are in almost any sport, it helps you. But going into future podcasts here, I think a conversation needs to be had. I know I said they're all in like a league of their own, but I think we need to have a conversation about TJ Watt and Miles Garrett because I think those two are the top dogs.
Yeah,
Um, and then we need to have a conversation about Micah and Nick Bosa because I think those are two separate conversations and two different like mini tiers within like the elite pass rushers of our league.
right. And you still are forgetting other guys in there like Daniil Hunter
Yes,
or Brian Burns or
for sure.
yeah. I mean, there's other guys. That'd be a fun ranking video in general. But with that, we're gonna end this episode of Life in the Stands. Remember to like and subscribe. We appreciate everyone watching and listening on whatever platform you're on, and we'll see you on the next episode.